You know, I feel as the best man here today, I'm really in a pretty unique situation. And that's because as I gaze out at a lot of you, I feel like I'm seeing some kind of jealous looks. And and the jealous looks are coming from you that know Ryan pretty well. And I think that's because anybody that knows Ryan pretty well would love to donate a left arm to have this microphone for a few minutes to give their favorite story about him, right? Show of hands. Or 3 stories, or 5 stories, or 10 stories. We could go on. And I'd be willing to bet, just from knowing Ryan for so long, a couple of these stories might be a little bit embarrassing, right? Or a little bit funny, or make his cheeks a little red. So I vowed, especially because I'm speech number 4 of 4, let's continue to keep that in mind. I vowed any slightly embarrassing story I had about Ryan, or stories that would make his cheeks a little red, I would keep to one single note card. That was tough. That's exactly right. It's been very difficult. My wife can vouch that I was up till 4 a.m. trying to figure a way to make that work. I used very, very small font on one of the note cards, and that wasn't working. I went back and erased a few of the stories. That wasn't working. And I swear to you, at 3:30 a.m., Amanda, my wife, said, just use another note card and tape it together. Nobody's going to care. So it was great advice, but 1 turned to 2 and then to 3, and things really got out of control. But again, I realize we don't have all night before dinner, so I'm gonna stick to 2. It's somewhere in between. So on a serious note, for every one story that I came up with about Ryan that was slightly funny or embarrassing, I came up with 3 heartwarming memories about how he's been there as a friend, of the memories we experienced together, and just how incredibly loyal he has been. Which was kind of frustrating to me, to be honest, at the time, because I'm not up here to be a heartwarmer. I'm the best man, right? So one of my fears was, am I going to be confused for a maid of honor, to be honest with you? Or worst case scenario, are there going to be a few of you out there that says, is Van Urkel's best man a little bit gay? I don't know. I don't. Now, that would be a larger fear, except when Ryan was my best man and he was right here at the microphone in front of my whole wedding party, he actually said for a very long time he thought I might have been gay. So I don't really have anywhere to be worried on that front. So to give you a brief background about how Ryan and I came to be friends, our moms worked together at J.C. Penney, so I have memories of Ryan at a very, very young age. Memories of going over to his house and playing air hockey. I thought it was the coolest thing that their house in the kitchen had an air hockey table. I had never done that before. We really became really good friends in high school. We had golf tryouts together. And afterwards, Ryan would invite me and a couple of the buddies over to his house to hang out. And that's just kind of where our friendship began. Ryan, believe it or not, is a little bit more of a sporadic person. And he is extroverted, newsflash. And so he began showing up to my house in his little white Ford Escort and driving me to places like South Bend, Indiana to do things I honestly hadn't really done before. I was very introverted. I was in my shell. We would do shopping. We'd get great food. And most of all, we would look, if not even talk to girls at sometimes, usually because of Ryan. Ryan was incredibly girl crazy. But he was very incremental in getting me out of my shell, and I never can thank him enough for that. We'd take that white Ford Escort down to South Bend, Indiana, and that thing had some magical powers, I'll tell you. We'd blare the music loud, but you could be in the left lane on the expressway, and Ryan would let go of the steering wheel, and it had such a strong right-hand side pull, you're in the right shoulder in about 1.5 seconds. I vowed that I would die in that car. I did, maybe out of high school. So that began our relationship of road trips. Graceland, Tennessee, Lincoln, Nebraska, Canada, all that kind of had a female focus, but that we had a great time doing. So after covering the background of our friendship, I really struggled on how to organize the rest of this speech. Again, keeping to 2 note cards, but yet highlighting the main qualities that make Ryan Van Urkel unique. So I thought about how could I do that in an effective manner. And I thought, what is something he always talks about? He always talks about being Dutch, right? Well, I'm Dutch. I can do that because I'm Dutch. And I don't know about you, but I stand back and I look at him, and he doesn't, to me, look like the typical guy from the Netherlands, to be honest with you, right? Does he? I mean, I've seen the Olympics. I don't know. But why does he say that, right? What makes Ryan unique that he keeps saying he's Dutch? It's that Van Arkel, that Van in the front of Van Arkel, which Valerie is now a proud sharer of that last name. So let's take the Van, the V, the A, the N that makes Van Arkel, and highlight the qualities that describe the guy's legendary status. So first, let's start with V. What's a good V word to describe Van Arkel? Vindicative. Vindicative. Bear with me, there's not many V words out there, okay? There's even less V words that are appropriate for this setting when I really step back and think about it, so. Vindicative. Do you need a definition? Because I did. God knows I did. To show or prove to be right, reasonable, or justified. I think that's fair. Has anybody ever tried to cook with Ryan before? Or, God forbid, cut up a vegetable next to him and try to say that's the way to do it? That knife is in his hand in 2.5 seconds, and he's showing you exactly how to chop up that vegetable. So that's a simple example. But Ryan can also be vindicative if somebody says something a little offensive about his family or something about him that he doesn't appreciate or something possibly to a girl that he didn't appreciate and he doesn't approve of. He's going to be vindicative, and I've seen it before. We were at a high school football game together. No, we weren't players. We were both incredibly scrawny. But during halftime of the game, a lot of the students would gather in the courtyard and conversate. And I'll never forget, Ryan stormed up to our friend group that day, right during halftime of the game, and he said, I heard one of the popular kids had sent something to a girl that I like, and I don't appreciate it. So I'm going to storm right up to that student section, right in front of everybody where he's sitting, and I'm going to give him a little piece of my mind. And I thought, this is going to be amazing. So what did my friends and I do? We went with him, right? No. We went as clear far down on the opposite side of the stadium as we could to watch him. And I'll never forget, he was on a mission. That student section is all the way up the bleachers, as high as you can go. He marched, got right in front of that kid, right in front of the entire student section, right after halftime, watched him talk for 2 or 3 minutes, very passionately, right? Had that finger out that he sometimes does. And I swear to you, I saw the kid say a couple words, shake his hand, and he apologized right there, which is Ryan's goal. I'll never forget, his chest puffed up a little bit. Now, I was far away, but his shoulder, I could swear his head got a little physically bigger. He walked to the end of the bleacher, went to go down to the bottom. He found our friend group, gave us a wink, a point, and that little fist bump he does. But unfortunately, it had rained a good amount right before halftime of that game. And that fist bump was just enough to throw him off balance. And he fell down about 20 rows of bleachers right in front of that same student section. Vindicative. But I'll tell you right now, Ryan that day did something that I could never do back then and maybe even now. The reason we're such good compliments is he's an extrovert. I was more of an introvert. And he was just extremely, he'd stand up for what he thought was right with me and everybody else, and I really appreciated that. All right? A. There's an A that takes to spell van, right? It's avid. These words aren't getting much better, I realize that, but Ryan, just like everybody under this tent, is an avid Michigan State sports fan. I realize that, right? Go green. Rose Bowl champions. Feels so good. But he's also an avid worker, right? Have you ever worked with this guy before? He works extremely hard at the jobs he has. He's also had a lot of jobs, to be honest with you. He's an avid worker, but sometimes he gets bored and he wants another challenge. I started to think it would be interesting if we could have all the places that he worked at actually sponsor this wedding, how much money we could gather, right? Rogers Foodland, Fulfillment Force, GoSW.com, Staples, Pharmajack, Shoreline Lifestyle, Pump House, Port 412, Give Real, College Facebook, Ability Specialist, Blossom Trails, Patrick Chevrolet, Real Deal, Martin Supermarket, a web development firm that I can't remember the name of, and that was all before he moved to Denver and San Francisco, right? So, The boathouse, I knew I'd leave some out. So one of the things I always respected about Ryan is his work ethic. In high school in the summer, he would work 2 jobs. He'd work at Rogers Foodland during the day, stocking shelves and bagging groceries. And at night, he'd work at Blossom Trails Golf Course doing all the watering. I just thought his work ethic was absolutely tremendous. And if you know Ryan, he also wears his work on his sleeve, right? So if he has a bad day at work, you're usually going to hear about it. If he has a great day at work, you're going to hear about it. He really cares. And I'll never forget, right when our relationship started, Ryan knocked at our door at about 7:30 in the morning. I didn't hear it. My mom got me up. Why would I be up that early, really? But Ryan said, you know, guys, I had a really tough night last night at work. And it was at Blossom Trails doing the watering and the course. And we said, well, what happened, Ryan? You know, and he said, I actually had to have a tow truck tow my little Ford Taurus out. Ford Escort out. And I said, well, you know, we've talked about the issues that this car has. Was it a check engine light, or did you have a flat tire, or did that right-hand pull possibly get too strong? He said, no, you got to understand. He uses his Escort to go out on the course and do all the watering. He'd pull it up to all the different ponds, and he'd hook up the hoses to do the watering. And he said, you know, I just really didn't want to be there that night. I was so tired from working at Rogers Foodland that I did it as quickly as possible. And I pulled up to that very last pond. I hooked up the hose, I did the watering, I got in my car, and I could just picture my head hitting the pillow. And as I went to back up the car, I looked in my rear view, and the tree that I thought I was backing up towards was actually getting further away. And I got confused and then scared, and I looked out of my windshield, and I just drove my entire car right into the pond. So I don't know about you, but I would pay a lot of money to be at Blossom Trails in the middle of downtown Benton Harbor, Michigan at 3:30 a.m. seeing a tow truck take a white Escort out of the pond, right? Last but not least for Avid, Ryan also, when we continued to grow up and we lived in East Lansing, worked at Farmer Jack's. And he worked at Farmer Jack's Supermarket, and instantly made a lot of great relationships at Farmer Jack's. The staff loved him. The customers loved him. Doing a lot of random tasks. He got promoted to manager, very quickly promoted to manager. And Ryan did, I think, what any respectable person would do before their first day on the big job. He went out with myself and all of our closest friends, and we partied about as hard as we could. And he gave one disclaimer. He said, you've got to wake me up for my 8 a.m. shift the next morning. You guys have to wake me up. I start at 8 a.m., 8 a.m., 8 a.m. None of us remember anything about that night, to be honest with you. That next morning, I do have some pretty vivid details and memories. I woke up seeing double. I saw 2 Ryan Van Arkels asleep on my couch, right? 1 is enough, but 2, I was like, oh, here we go. I quickly scrambled down. I woke up Ryan. I shook him. I said, Ryan, I think you might be late for work. He said, JT, you idiot. I told you I work at 8 a.m. because I knew none of my friends were dependable enough to wake me up. And he said this all without opening his eyes. He smiled. He kind of looked my way. And he says, I don't start till 10 a.m. And that A word pumped in my head right there, right? Asshole. I mean, avid. He was avid. So I did what any good friend do. I scrambled for my cell phone. I looked at it. I said, Ryan, we've got a little problem. It's 11:20 in the morning. You start at 10. So I wouldn't say Ryan or myself is the quickest of athletes, but he was so mobile and good to go as far as getting his clothes on. I even lended him a couple articles of clothing, even including a pair of boxer shorts, because he needed these for the first day. So nothing screams best man like lending articles of clothing to your good buddy, right? Farmer Jack's did happen to go bankrupt a couple months later, and I would be remiss to mention that, but it was not because of Ryan. He went on to be a fantastic manager, very well respected in the store. Everybody loved him, and his work ethic has been something I've always learned from. Last but not least, N, never wavering, and this is the serious part of the speech. Ryan is a fantastic friend, and he's an incredibly loyal friend that will never leave your side. Everybody had quirks growing up. Mine was I was incredibly insecure about being tall, and so Ryan knows I'd buy double XL shirts because I liked how long they were. I felt like they made me look shorter. It's strange. It's a strange thing. My wife still reminds me in high school I didn't own a pair of jeans. I wore all khaki pants, right? So these are all quirks that Ryan would never get at me at. He always instilled a lot of confidence about me, about who I was as a person, about who I was when I was meeting different people. And I really, truly am the person that I am today because of him. I've always said if you had a broken down car in a random city, we'll throw out Fayetteville, Arkansas, Ryan would be there to tow me out, and if it wasn't him, to find somebody that would. When I was at Michigan State, I was really looking forward to Thanksgiving weekend, and Ryan had a very unique, special relationship with my mom. They would talk all the time. And Ryan had called up my mom and said, I'm looking so forward to hanging out with Jeremy when he comes home from Michigan State for Thanksgiving weekend. He said, that's great, but in typical my mom fashion, said, you're not getting a minute, Jeremy, until he rakes all the leaves in our lawn and also cleans all the gutters before that weekend, right? She had told me that 10 times prior in the week, so I knew that when Ryan told me. I get home that Wednesday before Thanksgiving, fully expecting to work the entire day. Ryan had been at my house earlier the week to rake all the leaves and clean out every single one of our gutters. It was a complete day job, so I could hang out for the entire weekend. Now, I don't know how many friends you have that do little or large things like that for you, but that's something that's always stuck in my mind, and I know it's because he appreciated me as a person, wanted to hang out. My mom, unfortunately, couldn't be here today. She passed away 5 years ago. Still something that I think bothers all of us, but Ryan and my mom had a very, very unique relationship. When I gave him the news or he heard the news, who was one of the first people to hop off the elevator at the hospital to be there when she had just passed away, keeping in mind Ryan didn't live in Michigan at that point. He lived in Denver, right? And so I think he's done that for a lot of people that we've had in our lives. Is he's there. He's consistent. He's loyal. He's a great, great friend. I named off some quirky stories about Ryan. If he didn't have these qualities, I don't know if we'd be as good of friends because he makes me really look at life with a lighthearted nature. And that's what I love about Ryan. So, Valerie, I'm so happy for the both of you. From everything I've heard about you and now that we've gotten to hang out with a little more, you are a fantastic bride. You're going to be a fantastic wife. Ryan Van Arkel truly is one of the most loyal guys I know. He also has a talent of making the worst of situations better because of his outlook on life, which is really how he's affected me in so many ways. So Ryan, who's the avid toast poet, I won't even try to compete with that, as we all know, but please raise your glasses to Ryan and Valerie Van Arkel.